Hey guys, I don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm in an airport in Detroit, and as you can see, in COVID land, air travel is alive and well. I've been traveling this week, as you probably know if you've been tuning in. But I had a little bit of a reroute today, and they sent me here, and I've got a little bit of a layover. And I thought, hey, let's all get together again. I mean, why not, right? I hope you can hear me through my COVID outfit. I got my mask on. Uh, so that's all the update. I mean, obviously, do you like my new studio? It's pretty big, but I think the I should ask my team there since I can't hear it. Is the audio okay, guys?
You are sounding great.
Okay, good. So I didn't know if it would come through, the earpods and all that stuff. Tomorrow I'll be back home, so that's good. But let me say hi to you guys. It's been a good week. We've had a lot of interesting callers, a lot of interesting situations and quandaries as we do on this show. And by the way, I think we're all set up. We're trying this. Can you believe this? I'm not even on Wi-Fi. This is like through a cell connection. Um, but I think the callers calling in are going to work. We're going to try it. Let me give you the number: 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774, 840-940-2774 to get on the air with your roving reporter live on location here in the Detroit airport, whatever they call it. We're here. So call us. This thing's going to be leaping off of my face throughout the thing. But you know what? There's no one within a gazillion feet of me. So I'm not worried about it. I've got extreme social distance going on right here, right now. Okay. So as we've been doing, for all you boundaries.me subscribers, you can send in your email questions. And oh no, please don't tell me they're going to open this gate. Please, please. Okay. Let's just say a prayer that they're not going to use this gate because we're going to have a lot of people here with us if they do. Anyway, back to your questions. Your boundaries.me members have been emailing in some questions, so we want to start with one of those. This comes from Nancy, and she says she's still thinking about young adults in their late teens and early 20s. Assuming young adults that you are parenting is what she means. It's so hard to watch them make poor decisions that could affect the rest of their lives. Question: how do I let go if they decide to quit college or live with someone or stay in a bad relationship? Thank you. Well, Nancy, look, now this is going to, I hope this doesn't sound harsh, okay? But what I'm going to tell you when you say, how do you let go? You let go by matching, okay? Matching the real control psychologically that you have with the real control, or I should say, the wished for control or perceived or felt control psychologically that you have with the real control that you actually have in reality. Because in reality, you don't really have any control. Okay? They can make those bad decisions. Now, if we psychologically haven't come to grips with the people that we love are actually 100% free from us to do and to live as they choose, then we're going to always be anxious because we're going to be having that impulse to exert control and want to have control when we really don't. The impulse to control another person's choices, their feelings, their attitudes, their behaviors is really at the root of both a lot of our anxiety that we go through life with, as well as at the root of sometimes they're being out of control themselves. Because in that dynamic, what they're trying to do is resist that dynamic of control, and they might even do impulsive behaviors. Acting out is a push against control sometimes. And I'm not saying you're doing that, but it happens a lot of times. Sometimes when we're exerting control, people will fight for their freedom before they'll use their brain to figure out what kind of choices they need to make. I'm going to say that again. people will fight for their freedom before they use their brain to evaluate their choices. In other words, that's why teenagers push against parents, and sometimes they're really out of control because they're trying to rebel to get their freedom. Freedom is the most important thing, undergirding love and self-control. So in any relationship, to the extent that we're not setting somebody free, then we're going to run into problems either inside of ourselves or for them. So I want you to just kind of get it in your head really, really clear. They're going to do what they're going to do. Period. Period. You have no control. Okay? Now, having said that, what you do have is you have influence. Now, depending, this thing keeps falling off, but there's somebody within 1,000 feet of me, it seems so. I'm not going to read it. What you do have is you do have influence. You have different kinds of influence. For example, sometimes parents help kids with college or help them with, expenses or whatever, and they're making destructive choices like using drugs or whatever. You can cut off the funds. You don't have control. They can still use drugs, or that might influence them to say, this is what, sort of like the parable of the prodigal son in the Bible, right? What did the dad do? Set him free. Set him free. But he cut off the funds. He gave him a certain amount. And after that was gone, kid ended up in the consequences of the way he was living. And the consequences brought him back home. Now, that's one thing. Hopefully, you have a better method than that, or a more preferable method than that. And that is the ability to have relational influence. Now, that's generally going to start by listening to them and getting in a conversation. Instead of telling them immediately what to do, begin listening. And when you start with listening and you're building a bridge, well, tell me why you like him. What is it about the relationship that you find helpful? And then they're going to start talking, and then they're going to start, but he also blah, 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 blah. And instead of saying, well, see, you ought to get rid of him, say, well, how does that make you feel? Do you like living with that? If you play the movie forward, is that what you want? You're free to be in that kind of relationship. See, the more you let them sit with owning the negatives, I'm going to say that again. You let them sit with owning the negatives, because the negatives are what's going to turn them around. When we feel the pain, we do something to end the pain. But we can't do that if somebody's pushing us, because we're going to push against the pain of control first before we can even feel the pain. So I would listen a lot, and then I'd say, well, do you want my perspective? And then I'd give it to them. And, with my daughters, as they would tell you, I'll give it to them sometimes, even when they don't want it. But those are always judgment calls as to how much we're in their face already or not, or kind of what the dynamic is. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to you. When you've got a lot of, a lot of stuff going on, and you're watching them, it's kind of, you want to reach out, like imprison them in the safety of your love, right? I say imprison because you take away somebody's freedom. They're in prison. They're in jail. Nobody ever made a bad choice from a jail cell. No, but they end up in the jail cells because of the bad choices. And so if we try to put them in a jail cell so they won't make bad choices, well, that's not a good place to land. Okay, so you just got to deal with it, and internally deal with the fact that you don't have any control, and then use the kind of influence you do, which is the power of listening, and the power of listening to create trust, and listening to create a dialogue. And then you have a pathway. You actually have a phone line with which you can give your thoughts and advice, and try to make those as much their choice to receive as possible. If they don't do that, then I would say, well, I know, you said you really don't kind of want my advice. I would feel like I didn't serve you well if I didn't give it. So I'm going to give it to you, and that's it. You just take it and maybe go talk it over with your friends or whoever. But here's what I think. Okay, those are my thoughts, and also there's the leverage of their friends. You know, I don't mind trying to encourage people to talk to a really good peer group because that helps a lot of times. Okay, now we're going to try something here. I don't know how well you guys can hear me. I guess you can hear me okay. But we're going to try something we've never done before. We're going to try to take callers who, there's a lot of software that goes into getting all the platforms together, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and then through my phone. And now we're in a remote location, don't have Wi-Fi. We're going to try this through the cell connection. So we're going to try to take some live callers. And if I can't understand them or hear them or they hear me, then I'm going to go to back to taking your calls off of Facebook or your questions as you post them there or on Instagram. Okay, but we do have Vivian on the line, I think, calling us from California. Vivian, are you there?
Yes, Dr. Claude, I am. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, you sound like you're sitting here at gate 53. Where are you flying
to? I wish I was flying somewhere. I used to a long time, not doing it.
Actually, you probably don't wish right now. There's not a lot of service on airplanes. But you know what? It's kind of interesting. I didn't want to do it for a long time. And as I get out and talk to people and flight attendants and stuff, reading up on it, it seems like, it's in some ways one of the safer places to be than in a crowded bar. You don't want to do that. Anyway, what is your question? What is your question?
First of all, I want to thank your producer. I called yesterday, but you ran out of time. So
sorry.
He pushed me through today, which is great. I'm a longtime professional, been working since I was 16. I have a really strong mother. I remarried. I lost my first husband back in 2011 to cancer. I lost my dad at 6 years old to divorce, and then he went off to build a whole other family. After my husband died in 2011, and 6 months later, I was in a head-on car collision. It took me 3 years in a wheelchair and surgeries to get walking again. I finally landed a job, and thinking going back to normal. I've had good jobs. I've flown all over the place to help manage human resources, benefits, and for companies, and I was successul at one point.
Well, you're more than successful. You're kind of a poster child for resilience. It's like if somebody. I just want to hit pause for 1 second and I'm not. Not talking to anybody in particular, but in the law of large numbers, I am talking to somebody in particular. Okay, somebody out there is kind of playing woe is me, because there are a certain percentage of people that play poor me, woe is me, nothing ever goes my way, and they kind of get stuck in that. And you look at some of the woe is me stuff, and then you compare it to a resilient response like Vivian just talked about. Did you hear the things that have gone on in her life? And instead of developing a victim mentality, because she truly has been victimized by life, she developed a resilient, responding, proactive, I'm going to fight through this way of thinking. And here we go. So Vivian, you get poster child of the day here for resilience.
Well, thanks, doctor. I mean, there's other things that have happened in my life. I'm a survivor. I'm a victim of child abuse. I was sexually assaulted twice in my lifetime as a child, and survived both of that. I went to counseling on my own when I was 20, and finally told my family.
How old are you now?
55.
55. Okay. So you've dealt with a lot. What is your question? I mean, that's a lot.
Well, right now,
what is your question now?
right now, after the loss of this last job, and it happened right after I got remarried to my amazing husband, now, and we've both been surviving through different things. He survived, and I survived alcoholic spouses for many, many years, and we were the good spouses and did everything possible to be supportive and get through all that. We
It's
now
the downside
are
of resilience.
found
You're resilient sometimes for other people too. Well,
yeah.
what is your question?
So
What's your question?
self-doubt right now. I'm trying to move into the next phase of my life with my new husband, and we're about to celebrate our second anniversary. And I find he's gone off during COVID to go do a new career that I'm supposed to be doing with him, and I had to stay back because of a parent that's in their 80s. And I find, I want to get back out there with him, and I find myself doubting myself taking a test that I need to take to be able to do that. And
You doubt
I've never been
yourself
afraid
when
of
you
anything.
think of taking the test?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. And you have the, let's go fact-based for a second, objective for a second. Are you objectively prepared to take the test?
I don't know. That's where I find myself just kind of pondering what's going on in my brain that I'm.
No.
I'm
not
afraid to
asking.
take the
Hold
next
on.
step.
Stop. That's not what I asked you. Your brain's not objective. Your brain is subjective. Okay. I said, let's go factual for a second. All right. Are you objectively, for example, when I went to graduate school, okay, I had to take a test, a GRE, to apply to graduate schools. Objectively, I or anyone else could tell you whether or not we were objectively prepared. Okay, and the way you do that is there are prep courses. You take a prep course, and they give you the samples and all that, and you get to a place where you're scoring a certain level, and you kind of know the material. And so then at that point, you know what the problem is. It's all subjective. It's in your brain, but it's not objective. Okay, when I took my licensure exam, okay, it's the same thing. When you take when you go to the DMV to get a driver's license, I'm asking you, have you read the books? Do you know the material? Have you developed a mastery of the material? That's what I'm asking.
Yes.
I'm not asking how you feel. The answer is yes.
So knowing the material, I do know the material.
Okay, so you are ready to take this. Okay, you're just scared.
It's three phases to this test. The first phase, I went in there. It took me 10 minutes. I buzzed through the test, because you have to go in there and there's a screen and you answer the questions.
Right.
And I scored in the 95th percentile, right?
Okay, second phase.
Second phase.
I got to go fast here. I'm pushing it a little bit.
Okay.
Second phase.
I wasn't prepared for, but I went ahead and attempted it, and I only missed by a small amount. And you can only take the test one more time, and that's, I think, what has me feared right now, is that I can only take the test one more time. Otherwise, I have to wait.
Okay, so the worst that can happen is you have to wait. You got one more shot at it. And so the first time, you have I want you to go on history here. You have a model, not of passing. Well, you do that too. But you also have a model of preparation. So whatever the model was of preparation that got you ready that you didn't use the second time, okay, I would suggest going back to the method, the system, the model that got you a 98, 99%, 95, whatever it was on the first time, and do that on the second. And when you hit that threshold, you know you're going to be okay. Okay, what failed here was, I did the same thing. On one of mine, I'd blown out the first part, and I go, heck, I don't want to go through 18 million hours. I'm gonna just go take it cold and see what happens. And I almost passed it by taking it cold, but I didn't. But it let me know what I needed to go do. So I want you to check off the objective boxes. And so you didn't do that the second time. So that's what I would go say do. All right. Now, once you checked off the subjective boxes, you're ready. Okay. You're ready. objectively. Tell me, now let's go in your head. Now tell me, what are the subjective thoughts that begin to scare you?
I guess that our future depends on it. You know, we both, because of our former spouses, lost everything. So
Okay,
now
your
we're
future.
trying to create
Hold on.
something back again.
Whoa. It sounded like before that it's possible that 6 months of a certain element of how you would be living depends on it.
Right.
Is that right? In other words, something would get
Yeah.
delayed for 6 months. You'd be basically having the same life you have right now, if you
Right.
can. Right? So let's right size this. Your future doesn't depend on it. I mean, nobody's future in the whole thing depends on any one thing, any one relationship, any one job, any one illness, any one whatever. See, what happens when fear grips us is it's subjective and it goes into an all or nothing experience. So I want you to right size that and say, well, what would happen if I fail? That means I'd have to wait another 6 months and check. Wouldn't get to do these things. But that's not your whole future. So I want you to listen to these all or nothing voices in your head. And then I want you to dispute them when it comes, well, if I fail, then I have to wait another 6 months and I'd still go to the park with my mask on and feed the ducks and have my friends and a bunch of other stuff. And I would have this one thing that I lost. So watch your all or nothing thinking. Okay. Then when you are prepared, then I'm going to give you a little formula and then I got to go to some other callers. Here's the formula. When you have the fear, let yourself feel it. Say, yeah, it's scary. Feel it. Feel it in my body, feel it in my chest, heart beats a little bit. And I want you to normalize that feeling. Because if you normalize it, then it won't interfere with your performance as much. Normalize the feeling. Then say, okay, that's the fear. Fear doesn't really have anything to do with what's true. It's just a feeling. There it is. Okay, I'm afraid. So what? And then I want you to ignore it. Right now, I'm ignoring a lot of airport noise to focus on you. Okay.
Right.
But it's not going away. And that's how fear is.
Right.
It's playing in the background, but your mind can only focus on one thing at a time. We cannot multitask. So what people do is they'll hear the noise and they'll turn, hey, could you guys walk more slowly? Because it's interfering with talking to Vivian. And they focus on the fear and they lose their performance and engagement in life.
Right.
So I want you to learn to treat it as noise, normalize it, feel it. Yeah, there's that traffic. And then treat it as noise, ignore it, and then hop in there and go take this test and kill it. All right?
Okay.
Giving you a bunch to think about. Get objective, get to that threshold, know that you're ready, and then ignore the noise and go take it. You're a survivor. I believe you're going to do this. Okay? Thank you for your call. And you're my first caller ever in an airport on a cell connection, which is, we're learning, you know what? This is kind of cool as I think about the show going forward. And Vivian, I do want to, again, if you can still hear me, I really do want to just hold you up as an example of the amount of survival and resilience that you have exhibited in life. I just don't have any doubt that you're gonna be able to pull this off. Okay, let's go to Megan, who's calling us from Minnesota, up in today my area of the country. I'm up in that realm, non-Californians. Okay,
Hi.
Megan, how are you? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay.
It's amazing. It's a miracle.
It is. So I'm going to be careful, and I'll ask my question first, and then I don't know how much background information. I think sometimes I might share too much, so I'll just ask my question first and then go from there.
Okay.
So I'm curious about some tools and skills that I can learn to be less anxious and less vulnerable when I am either with or interacting with my mother-in-law. I have been married for
Let me ask
12.
you a question.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question.
Yep.
This is just a little game I want to play in my own head.
Mhm.
Do you quickly feel kind of like a pang of guilt if you've made a mistake and done something that you feel like somebody else won't like, and then you have a tendency to overreach and try to make sure they're okay?
Yes. I'm a marriage and family therapist myself, so I think in some ways it's possible.
Okay. What do you mean in some ways it's possible? It's kind of a straightforward question.
With her, this is coming off of a pretty traumatic experience. So I think in some ways this is a little bit more of an isolated situation that is more triggering.
Okay. So generally you don't worry about when you say no or confront somebody, you don't really worry about how they feel. You're good. You're able to do that well.
I can do it okay. It's not my favorite thing to do.
Okay.
I can do it okay.
All right. So then what about your mother?
Not with
what
her,
about your
though.
mother-in-law?
So 3 years ago, my husband had an emotional affair, and we worked through it. We are still married. We are very strong. We did a lot of healing through all of that and are in a very good place. A lot of that trauma triggers from that have passed, not to say that they don't come up in time, but overall we're very healed and in a very good place. But through all of that, there hasn't been much support from her in particular, and in support of our marriage, even during the separation, either. And we have 3 kids.
What do you mean there wasn't a lot of support? Was she, because he screwed up, so she wasn't supporting you guys getting back together because she was siding with you and saying, why should you do this? She wasn't for the marriage, or
she sided with. She wasn't for our marriage. She sided with my husband. She was not for our marriage. She did a lot of enabling during that time frame when he was very lost and very in a dark place. And she really pretty much pushed against our marriage versus working towards our marriage of, hey, you have a really good relationship.
So he's the one that actually strayed, and then she supported him.
Correct.
Gee, Mom.
This is my mother-in-law, so his mom.
Thanks.
It's his mom.
Yeah, but you know what a good mother would do is sort of kick her son's butt, say go home, son, work this out. So what's your question?
And so we emailed her, which was a mistake, about 6 months ago, saying our relationship's very strange. She'll buy our kids a lot of things. And in that dynamic, it's very difficult because I haven't felt supported from her for a very long time. And I get very reactive and I get very, very anxious. Like I just get very triggered from those experiences with her. And I don't know how to either handle it myself and then navigate it with the kids when she wants to buy them birthday presents and Christmas gifts, which of course.
Your specific question is about her gift buying?
I think if I really were to focus on your time, it's really about how to not allow it to affect me so much. And what to do with kids. I think it's twofold. It comes down to the kids because we have very minimal interaction with her.
Okay, so you really don't have to interact with her. She sends,
which is sad.
She sends gifts, and the gifts aren't a problem either. It just reminds you that this woman exists.
In some ways, yeah. And it's hard because if the kids, we can't do complete cutoff with her. She threatened to cut us out of her will.
Well, I don't see why you would have to. If she's not doing anything abusive and she's not hurting your kids and she's just giving them gifts, and the only real problem is that that becomes a trigger for you, then why,
I think,
you know,
yeah.
why would you
Mhm.
have to cut you? Generally, you cut people off when they're doing something destructive that they won't stop, and you've confronted and tried to work it out.
I think I don't trust her around our kids and around us because of the non-support for our marriage.
Well, I don't. Okay, you've kind of confused me here because you said earlier that it's just that she gives your kids gifts and the gifts aren't a problem. It just triggers you. Now you're saying something very different. If there's somebody that I don't trust because I think they're going to hurt my kids, then I'm not going to let them around my kids, at least unsupervised if I'm not there. So what's she doing to your kids that's destructive?
I guess you're answering that we don't have interaction with her, and I guess I just have to leave it at that. I mean, we really don't have interaction unless she's buying the kids gifts for birthdays and Christmas. I mean, we don't see her other than in holidays. So I guess in some ways I just need to leave it at that and not expect more from her relationship.
Well, you said y'all sent her an email and tried to address it, and she didn't respond well, right?
Correct. And I can't control that.
No, you can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
You tried to reconcile. It sounds like you and your husband are in a good place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And kind of goofy
I think
mom
it's just,
is not dictating his life anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which if
And
he was
ultimately, I just have
subject
to let it go.
yeah, and if he was subject to her dependency before, which he probably was, as you described it, she was enabling him, and he was able to, you know, let himself get tied up with mommy as an adult. It also explains probably the affair, right? Because he's a dependent,
Mm-hmm.
dependent on, you know, mom. That now he's unplugged from that. So what I would do, from your perspective, is really, really just remember to keep in your head. See, this woman only has any power in the whole sphere in anything because she's on the chessboard of your marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
If she were, if she were, the drive-through lady at, at McDonald's or something, or somebody down the street, or somebody on the PTA, but she's not inside the circle psychologically of your marriage, then she wouldn't affect you. And so I think part of this is getting back to really, really focusing on the strength that you have in the relationship now with him, right? And realize that literally, because he finally has done the leaving and the cleaving psychologically, that really does make her a powerless player in this whole thing.
Right.
She has no power over you. And somehow that's kind of gotten some, in the air traffic control part of the metaphor system, it kind of gets on your screen, right? And so realistically, you've probably got to work through some anger you have at her because that's connecting you to her, and then realize you're not going to win in that way. She's never going to act correctly back then, but ultimately you won. And so I would let it go. She sends a gift, that's fine. You send her a letter. You want to send her a letter, say, hey mom, the last time we talked about this didn't really go, we didn't end up resolving it. If you ever want to do that, let us know. But until then, we'll just, wait to hear from you. And I'd go on and have a nice life.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the
Thank you very much.
Other thing is, since you're a marriage family counselor, I'm going to ask you, how does a woman like this have that much power in your head, other than I understand what went on there, but is there a transference going on here that she represents somebody else that something quite isn't finished with? So you might want to look at that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I will. Okay.
All
Thank
righty.
you so much for your time. All right.
For
Bye-bye.
your call. It is It's interesting how sometimes if you listen to kind of the discussion that when somebody and this is true of all of us, I'm not not picking on her, but sometimes when you get into these fear unresolved goofiness kind of feelings about somebody having power, how we literally do get so subjective, and fear becomes global. It becomes to kind of take over everything. Because objectively, as you remember, what she said was, well, it's really about these gifts, a specific problem. I don't want the gifts causing a problem, blah, blah, blah. But then when you zero in on that, then she started to say, well, it feels like, all of this other stuff. And that's what all of us can do very, very well. If you remember, when you're feeling afraid ever, in fact, it goes back to the previous caller about the test. Whenever you're feeling afraid, there are mechanisms that are going to hit triggers that will cause you to have a tendency to go global and subjective. See, that feeling part of the brain loses specificity. It loses objectivity. It loses containment of a threat. And it loses the sequence of time. So let's look at each one of those. When you're talking about it loses objectivity in reality, what's the problem? You get a few gifts in the mail, once a year. That's objectively what she said was the real problem. Or maybe unless it triggered all this other subjective stuff. And so then you lose the ability to contain it. And so that's where we have to remember, no, this is all this is about. But also you got to remember the time sequence. That's where she's lost perspective of time. That's what trauma does, right? And she went through a trauma here in her marriage. And you got to remember, you know what? That was then, this is now. And what I tried to do was cut through the time zone and get her more into the now, which is her relationship with her and her husband is very, very strong now. Let's live in the present. That's going to diminish the traumatic trigger from trauma. And when it comes, then we have these other techniques that we talked about. Okay. Hope that proves helpful to a lot of us as you think about traumatic stuff that you have to deal with as well. Okay, let's go back to the phones. We have Gina calling us from Vermont. And Gina's got, looks like some kind of relationship question. Gina, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Cloud. Thanks for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
My question is, I'm at a crossroads with my boyfriend. We were both divorced. He's been emotionally unavailable, and I feel like his relationship with his ex and his ex
is that a new thing?
Being emotionally unavailable?
Yeah.
No, he's been pretty emotionally unavailable pretty much from the start.
Oh, well, then why did you continue and go deeper?
It's a good question.
That's a good question, isn't it? Let's ask that
yes,
question.
Yes, it is. I'm sure
of
it's something
all the
about
questions
me.
in the airport, gate A53 has that question. He was emotionally unavailable from the beginning, and now you've had all that time to learn that he's emotionally unavailable. My hunch is you've shown up emotionally yourself and invited him to be available, and has he responded to that invitation?
He does to a certain extent, but then when I push it a little bit, he'll shut down pretty much.
Well, that's not responding.
I told him from the beginning.
If you invite somebody to a party, responding to the invitation in the way I mean is they come to the party, enters into an emotional relationship and shows up and is present and talks and all of that. Kind of a certain extent means look at the invitation. Yeah, well, I might drop by and I'll talk to you on the front side. I don't want to come in the backyard and stay the whole 2 hours. And that's not showing up to the party. So what does he do? Which one does he do?
Well, I've mentioned, right from the start that one day I'd like to be married again, and I don't want to pretty much don't want to waste my time. I'm like I'm into dating to not to date, but for more of a courting thing to find out.
Okay, now do you know my philosophy on that?
On courting?
On dating,
courting?
dating for marriage versus courting.
I guess I don't know what your philosophy is, but I can guess what it might
I
be.
just ask because I talk about it on the show a lot, and this is exactly why I have that philosophy. By the way, I have a question about that. So from the beginning, you said he's emotional. So you're dating for marriage, and you've chosen somebody to pursue looking at marriage with, and you know he's not emotionally available from the beginning, and you've tried to address it. Good job. I'm glad you tried to address it. He doesn't respond. And so why are you still doing this? What am I missing?
That's a good question, because I let my heart get involved, and I'm a little emotionally attached to myself now, so it makes it much harder to.
Okay, well let me give you I'm gonna play cardiologist here with your heart for a second. Okay.
Okay.
If I'm a cardiologist and you walk in and you say, I got a heart palpitation, then I'm going to try to diagnose what kind of palpitation is it, right? Okay, so now your heart is involved. I want you to be a cardiologist. Tell me, what does your heart feel? And my hunch is, see, when your heart is involved in a good way, there's an attachment that's happening because your heart is getting touched and fulfilled and filled, and we have love, and it starts to fill us up, and then we don't want to lose somebody, of course, because of the goodness of the love. All right. A.
Right.
B. Sometimes people's heart gets involved, but it's not out of the relationship is filling that heart. It's the heart being involved because the relationship is creating longing. Like, I'm not getting what I need, and I want more. And there's a longing and a needing. And that regresses us to kind of a childlike state where we're needing something from like a parent that we're not getting. That's a very different heart involvement. And there's a fear of letting go or taking a stand because it might be the ultimate, I might not get it from them. So which one do you have? That's why I ask you, is this new? Was this wonderful, most fulfilling, and I don't mean for a night, I mean over a long, months and months. I've never felt this, when I go home after a date, I feel so fulfilled. I feel so heard.
Well, I do at times. I do sometimes, we have fun together sometimes, joke around and laugh, and but then there's other times.
Come on. There's a little higher bar than joking around and laugh. You do that with friends.
I know. Okay. But then there's other times when I try to talk seriously, like, I want to be married someday. What are your expectations in this relationship? And he kind of like shuts down. I don't really think that I don't want to be married right now, but that doesn't mean I, don't want a future with you. But then I'm like, well, what happens if you're in the same spot a year from now? I've just, and you say the same thing.
Gina, what are you going to do? Have you heard yourself?
I know what I'm supposed to do.
Well, give me a question.
What do you mean, give you a question? He also seems to be very attached to the ex and the ex's family, which makes me pretty uncomfortable.
Good. Let's make it worse, as if it weren't bad enough already. So,
just feels inappropriate. Like, I don't know.
Give me a question.
Like maybe he has an attachment there he can't let go, and maybe that's why he doesn't want a serious commitment with me.
I don't know what his reason is. Apparently, he could let go of it because they're divorced. So, what you're talking about is a pattern of failed connectedness, and now you're connected to a failed connector. And so,
Right.
I don't know what to tell you other than if you're telling me it's not what you want and it's not fulfilling, and you keep trying to address it, and you want to have significant relationship, and he says, well, I don't really want one of those. I literally don't know why you're still there other than just being afraid of the loss.
Mm.
I would want better for you than you've described. Now that might be him. If you say, look, I'm not going to do this anymore. If you don't become available and start to work on these issues, and we develop a better relationship, and you got 30 days or 60 days to show me that you're serious about this, then I'm gone. And that's fine. You made your choice. If you do want to show up, there's a lot about you that I, like and want to be around. But I can't go through this emotionally unavailable stuff. Now, in my way of thinking, if he were able and willing and wanting to do that, he probably would have already done it by now. I don't give that a lot of hope based on what you said, but you can give it that option. I just don't want you to be sitting here a year from now and call me back when I'm stuck in another airport.
Right.
I want better for you. Don't you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me that.
Well, I came out of a 32-year marriage relationship that was pretty, emotionally abusive, and my ex was, he had substance abuse problems and cheating and all that stuff. So.
And how long after that one did you start dating?
And that was right out of high school. So I don't know how to date.
Okay, so now would you be open to a different philosophy than the courting to marry philosophy? Just be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I want you to read my book, How to Get a Date Worth Keeping, because what it's going to tell you is that maybe this dating just to find the one, maybe like you said, you haven't dated enough to be able to recognize the one, and you get exclusive pretty quickly with one that doesn't qualify. And so dating is a process of learning what you want and what the standard is, and basically continuing to date until somebody reaches the standard. And that's when you say, hey, maybe I just want to date you, and you get exclusive instead of the other way around, because it's failed you, and I would want better for you. Okay, so bottom line to your question, tell them what you want. Say, if you want to be that person, I'm interviewing. Okay, I'm interviewing for a relationship, and whoever I hire for this position is going to be like this. They're going to show up. They're going to share. They're going to do more than just have a good time and make me laugh. They're going to want to be present. We're going to listen to each other, and we're going to share more, and we're going to have dreams together, and we're going to make sacrifices for one another. We're going to work through conflict, and we're not going to avoid it. Now, if you want to be that person, I'm hiring if you can show me over some time that you want to do that. So far, that hasn't happened. I've addressed it. I've told you. And, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. You self-select out, and I'm getting on down the road. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
But if he says yes, I want to do that, please don't believe it until you get a track record with him of months and months of his really being there and present and loving you like you ought to be loved. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
All right. Got some work to do.
You got some work to do. And if you lose him, just remember, what have you lost? You've lost a relationship that didn't connect with you. Okay? That's dodging a bullet. It's not, other than, being a little sad. That's not a bad thing. Okay. By the way, I was talking about my thinking on dating and I wrote a book on this called How to Get a Date Worth Keeping. It's a whole program that many people who were dateless or in a pattern of bad dating have responded and worked the program. And, it's been years now, lots and lots of them. There's a lot of, proven success of these methods when you begin to do it. And you can get that program. First of all, I wrote a book on it, How to Get a Date Worth Keeping, but you can get that program on boundaries.me. So if you go to boundaries.me, if you're single, you want to learn about dating and how I think about it and how I think, it has to happen, in order to be fruitful. Go to boundaries.me and sign up, and it launches on Friday. Boundaries.me is already launched. Obviously, it's up and running. But the dating program will be there on Friday. So what's today? Thursday. Get with it. Learn. Go on there today. Join today. And then tomorrow, the program will launch, and you'll already be familiar with how boundaries.me works. So there you go. Okay, how are we doing on time? I got to board an airplane here in about 10 minutes. So let's go back to the phones and talk to Ann, who's calling us from the East Coast. Ann, welcome to the program.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Cloud. I live in New Hampshire. So can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me? My headphone died because I've been watching a movie on the first flight and I lost the noise cancellation, but now can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Thank you.
Did that change anything? Did that change anything when I did that?
No. I mean, there was a beep and you sound the same. You sound great.
Oh, okay. I thought it might cancel a little more noise, but oh well. So what's your question?
So I'm married, 4 kids, grown children, and our only daughter has been estranged from the family for about a little less than a year. We've had numerous issues over the last half a dozen years. She had an alcohol problem. She's sober about a year and a half. So my question
is she actively in recovery?
Yeah.
Is she in a program?
No, she's not, and I'm in recovery. I've got 8 years and I worked the 12 steps that are amazing, and it's helped my life tremendously.
But
I've also read some of your books.
She just kind of went cold turkey and didn't work on any issues. Okay.
Yeah, so she's like a sprinkler hose. Oh.
She's what?
Yeah.
What'd she say?
She's like a sprinkler hose that's like, just running around, and, there's a lot of aggression and frustration and anger.
Yeah, she's what we
She's
call
had a lot of trauma.
A dry drunk, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. She's had a lot of trauma in her life, divorce, sexual assault, just hard stuff. So my question is, with her being on the outside, none of the family really wants to engage. I do. I'm her mom. She's my only girl. And I've tried a few times. She's actually reached out to my husband and myself. A lot of aggression in her reaching out. My husband's like, I'm only meeting her if we do counseling. And I'm open. Like, I'm totally open. I don't care if we have counseling because I have the mighty counselor with me. God is on my side. And I know that if it means that I don't see her for a year, I'm not willing. Like, I'm more. So do you have any suggestions on,
what did she say when
prayer warrior?
Yeah. What did she say when she reached out?
The last text I got was, I don't understand why Dad still wants to counsel and you don't. And I'm not willing to meet unless it's both.
Whoa. You're not willing to go into counseling with her?
My husband wants to go to counseling. I said, I'll do whatever works. Yeah, I'm willing either way. She doesn't.
Then you're right. I thought she said that you don't.
No. She's the one who wants to just meet with the two without a counselor. And my husband's anxious because last time we met with a counselor, Dr. Cloud, it was vicious. The counselor lost grip and she went up and down us for a half an hour. So he's got a traumatic event with a counselor. Anyway,
Well, and a weak counselor.
I don't want to. This counselor, I thought,
Okay.
we
So,
used her for about
so
a year and a half,
what,
and then,
what is,
yeah.
what's the question then?
So my question is, like, should I continue to push to meet with her, even if it's just me?
Wait a minute.
Like,
Whoa.
it's been a couple
I'm
weeks.
lost. Hang on. I'm lost. It doesn't sound like you're having to push. She's asking for it, right?
But she's limiting it to just being with her father and me. Like, she doesn't want to meet with me alone.
Oh, but your father won't, or her father won't go unless you're with a counselor.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, then, I guess you either you and your husband could sit down and figure out, because I mean, by and large, if I got a daughter that's she's had alcohol problems and she's sober and she's kind of trying to get it back together, she's unable, obviously, because she's got a lot of issues. But if she's making any move back, I would try to respond to that. And so if your husband feels like he don't want to do it because it's not going to go well, then probably what I would suggest you do is you and your husband go talk to somebody beforehand who's better than or more helpful than the last person you talked to. I guess wasn't helpful to him, he said. And talk about, okay, we're not going to have a counselor there, but what would a strategy be that we could have a meeting without a counselor? Doesn't mean, I mean, what's the bad thing going to happen other than you decide, well, that wasn't helpful, right? Then you're no worse off you are now.
Right.
So what I would probably do is, if he's that afraid of it, I'd go into a really good counselor, preferably one with some addiction experience, to just ask, okay, so what are some ground rules we could set up? What are some expectations? How should we approach this? And I'm going to give you a few, and then unfortunately, I'll hop on an airplane. I would probably say, okay, we'd be, we're overjoyed to be able to meet with you. Gosh, we would love to meet with you because here's what we want. We'd love to have a good relationship with you again. And we also want you to thrive. And, we also want to help you any way we can help you. We don't really know how to do any of that, but we're certainly willing to sit down and just listen to you and what you want. And so then I would probably take that stance. And then when I went there, I would probably say something like, well, while we're here, because I tell you in the letter all the things that we want, we would like to see this work out well. But why don't you tell us what you want? And I'd sit and I'd just listen. And I would use it as reconnaissance. What have you got to lose? I mean, even if you sat there for an hour and you didn't say anything and you just listened and tried to understand, then at the end of it, you're going to have a picture of, where are we? Is she just in attack mode? Is she desperate? Is she humbled? Where are you? At least you're going to learn. And that's going to inform you to your next step. And so I would probably go and just listen, and I would cast a vision for what I wanted. And then I would say, okay, well, this went pretty well. Could we do this again? If she got attacking, is that what she did last time with the counselor?
Yes. And the counselor lost the grip, and she, in her fear, in my daughter's fear, she has a nasty voice, and she, she loses. She's lost it on her three brothers, her sister-in-law. She's just got that anger and nastiness that comes from her fear.
And what does she do? Yell, call you names? What does she do?
Pretty much that. She yells and calls us names. Yep.
Okay. Well, then what you might want to do is in the beginning or even in the letter, say, we'd love to do this. The last time we got together, it was difficult. when you start swearing at us and calling us names, that makes it really difficult to be able to listen and get to the real problem. And so let's just say this one ground rule: neither of us is going to yell at the other one or call each other names. But I got to let you know, if you do that and it's not productive, then what we'll do is we'll call a timeout, and we'll just maybe go outside for a few minutes and come back and let you try it again. You can do that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again,
excellent.
I'm just on a recon mission here. I just want to learn where she is. We don't know what's going on with her. And it's hard to figure out a strategy until you do a little reconnaissance. Okay. Speaking of reconnaissance, I have got to go. I've got to go find out where my gate is. I think I'm in the right airport. I'm pretty sure of that. But thank you for your call. I gotta tell you guys here.
Thanks. God bless.
Thank you. This has been kind of an interesting experience. But what's cool about it is I've kind of found out this week, even though, because every now and then, it's more than every now and then, but sometimes in various, I'm rarely gone as a whole week like I have been. I'm usually gone for a day or two. But what I've learned about our program is that when I do have to travel, hey, we can find a way to pull this off. So it's always fun to be with you guys. Appreciate your calls. Thank you to the callers. Thank you for all of you on the platforms and Facebook and Instagram, your help that you're giving freely to each other. It's a wonderful thing to see. We're building a tribe here with herd immunity against dysfunction. As we learn to deal with it in ourselves, we can learn to deal with it better with others. So that's kind of the goal. And also go to boundaries.me. If you haven't done it yet, go become a subscriber. We're getting more and more calls from people that are really joined the groups there, and they're doing a bunch of stuff that they say is really helping. And every day, if you become a boundaries.me subscriber, which you can do today with a free trial, then you're going to get every morning in your inbox, you're going to get a 2-minute video from me about a specific action step to take that day that's going to lead you further down the road of growth in these areas that you care about. So go to boundaries.me, sign up, and also tomorrow on boundaries.me, the dating course launches. A lot of dating questions. There's a lot of things on there about how to think about that. So check it out, boundaries.me. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to go get on an airplane and be home where I can talk to you tomorrow from there. Okay. Love you guys. I'll see you then.